The camera fell from Nia's hands the moment she realized the truth. The man she'd been kissing in that mountain hideaway. The man whose gentle touch made her forget every warning her instincts screamed, wasn't just dangerous. Park Min-jae was Seoul's most feared mafia boss, and she had just agreed to stay in his world. What she didn't know was that his enemies were already watching, and her decision to stay had just painted a target on her back. Welcome to Afro K-Drama Besties. Please like, share, and subscribe for more. The neon lights of Seoul's Gangnam district painted the night in electric blues and reds as Nia Rose stepped out of the taxi, her camera bag heavy against her shoulder. She had 48 hours to capture the essence of Korea's underground art scene for her documentary series, and tonight's gallery opening in Itaewon was her first stop. The crisp October air carried the scent of street food and possibility. Inside the gallery, abstract paintings lined white walls while Seoul's creative elite mingled over champagne. Nia moved through the crowd with practiced ease, her dark skin drawing curious glances, but her confident stride discouraging unwanted questions. She had learned long ago to own every room she entered. She was framing a shot of a sculpture when she felt it. That prickle of awareness that came from being watched. Nia lowered her camera and turned. He stood near the entrance like a shadow given form. Tall, lean, dressed in black from head to toe with an intensity in his eyes that made her breath catch. He wasn't looking at the art. He was looking at her. Park Min-jae had come to the gallery because his younger sister Hannah insisted he support her friend's exhibition. He had planned to stay 15 minutes, make an appearance, and return to the more pressing matters of running Seoul's most powerful criminal organization. Then he saw her. The American photographer moved through his city like she belonged there, her natural hair framing a face that combined strength and softness in equal measure. When she lifted her camera, the focused intelligence in her expression reminded him of how he analyzed threats. When she smiled at something the artist said, warmth transformed her entire face. He should leave. Women like her, honest women with light in their eyes, had no place in his dark world. But his feet carried him forward instead. The artist uses negative space to represent loss, he said in perfect English, stopping beside her in front of a particularly stark canvas. Nia glanced at him, taking in the expensive clothes, the confident posture, the danger that clung to him like cologne. Or maybe he just ran out of paint. Min-jae's lips twitched. People rarely joked in his presence. You're American. Atlanta-born and raised. You're observant. She extended her hand. Nia rose. Min-jae. He took her hand, noting the calluses from camera equipment, the strength in her grip. What brings a documentary filmmaker to Seoul's underground art scene? How did you know I make documentaries? Your camera setup, the way you frame shots. You're not just taking pictures, you're telling stories. He released her hand, immediately missing the warmth. Also, I asked the gallery owner about you. Stalker tendencies. Charming. But she was smiling, intrigued despite herself. What about you? You don't look like the art gallery type. My sister would be offended to hear you say that. She's the artist behind those sculptures by the window. They drifted toward Hannah's work, falling into easy conversation. Min-jae found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in years, laughing at Nia's observations about the pretentious gallery crowd, sharing his own sardonic commentary. She was sharp and funny and completely unaware of who he was. It was intoxicating. When the gallery began to empty, Nia checked her watch reluctantly. I should go? Early shoot tomorrow in Hongdae. Let me drive you. The offer escaped before Min-jae could stop it. I can catch a cab. At this hour? In this neighborhood. He pulled out his phone. My driver is already outside. Something in his tone made it clear this wasn't really a request. Nia should have been annoyed, should have insisted on her independence. Instead, she found herself intrigued by the contradiction between his polite words and the command underlying them. The black sedan waiting outside was exactly the kind of car important men drove. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. Min-jae's driver, a stern-faced man who could have been carved from granite, pulled into traffic without being told the destination. I didn't give you my address, Nia pointed out. The Conrad Hotel in Uido. You checked in yesterday afternoon. At her sharp look, Min-jae added, I make it my business to know about interesting people visiting my city. Your city. I have certain responsibilities here. Certain interests to protect. It wasn't quite a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. Not yet. They drove through Seoul's glittering streets, conversation flowing between comfortable silences. Min-jae pointed out hidden restaurants and local spots tourists never found. Nia told him about growing up in Atlanta, about choosing documentaries over journalism, about her fascination with subcultures and underground movements. When they pulled up to the hotel, Min-jae walked her to the entrance despite her protests. Can I see you tomorrow? Nia hesitated. Every instinct screamed that this man was dangerous, that getting involved would be complicated. But when he looked at her with those intense dark eyes, something in her chest tightened with want. I have interviews scheduled all day. Then dinner. 8 o'clock. I know a place with the best bulgogi in Seoul and enough privacy for you to actually relax. You're very persistent. I know what I want when I see it. The words hung between them, heavy with promise. Say yes, Nia. She should say no. Should maintain professional boundaries. Should recognize the warning signs her instincts were screaming. Instead, she heard herself say, yes. His smile transformed his face, softening the hard edges into something almost boyish. I'll pick you up at 8. That night, lying in her hotel bed, Nia stared at the ceiling and wondered what she had gotten herself into. She replayed their conversation, analyzing each moment, trying to understand why a man who clearly moved through Seoul's upper circles would be interested in a documentary filmmaker from Atlanta. Across the city, Min-jae stood in his penthouse office while his second-in-command Sang-ho reviewed the evening's operations. But his mind kept drifting to dark eyes and an easy smile, to the first honest connection he had felt in 15 years of living in shadows. Boss, are you listening? Sang-ho's voice cut through his thoughts. The shipment clears customs tomorrow. Make sure our contacts in Busan handle it personally. Min-jae turned from the window. And clear my schedule for tomorrow night. Sang-ho's eyebrows rose. You never clear your schedule. Tomorrow I do. The restaurant Min-jae chose was tucked down a narrow alley in Insadong, the kind of place you could only find if you knew it existed. Traditional wood beams crossed the low ceiling, and the aroma of grilling meat filled the intimate space. They were shown to a private room where cushions surrounded a low table. Nia had dressed carefully, choosing a simple black dress that was elegant without trying too hard. When Min-jae arrived in dark jeans and a fitted sweater, looking less severe than the night before, she felt her pulse quicken. This place doesn't exactly scream tourist-friendly, she said as they settled onto the cushions. That's the point. The owner's family has run this restaurant for 3 generations. They don't advertise, don't take reservations from people they don't know. Min-jae ordered in rapid Korean, and soon the table was covered with banchan, small plates of kimchi and pickled vegetables and other delicacies. Trust me, I don't trust anyone I just met. But she was already reaching for her chopsticks, trying the food he recommended. The evening unfolded like a dance. Min-jae found himself sharing stories he never told anyone, about his childhood before his father died, about the pressure of family expectations. He edited carefully, leaving out the blood and violence, but the emotions were real. Nia talked about her parents' divorce, about being one of the few black students at her private school, about learning to navigate spaces where she was always marked as different. You learn to read rooms quickly, she said, meeting his eyes. You learn who's dangerous and who's just curious. And which am I? Definitely dangerous. She took a sip of soju. But I haven't decided what kind yet. Min-jae's phone buzzed insistently. He ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. Finally, he glanced at the screen and his expression hardened. I need to take this. Excuse me. He stepped out of the private room, and Nia heard his voice through the paper-thin walls, speaking in harsh Korean. She couldn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable. This was a man used to giving orders, used to being obeyed. When he returned, the warmth had drained from his face. I'm sorry. Something's come up. I need to handle it personally. Business emergency at 9 p.m.? My business doesn't follow normal hours. He caught her hand as she started to gather her things. But I don't want this night to end. Come with me. Come with you where? Somewhere I need to be. It won't take long. and then we can continue this properly. His thumb traced circles on her wrist, and Nia felt heat spread up her arm. Please. She should say no. Should let him handle his mysterious business alone. Should recognize that good men didn't have emergencies that required them to disappear into the Seoul night. But curiosity and attraction warred with common sense, and curiosity won. Okay. They drove to Gangnam, to a nightclub with no sign and a line of beautiful people waiting behind velvet ropes. The massive bouncer took one look at Min-jae and opened the door immediately, bowing deeply. Inside, music pounded through speakers as strobe lights cut through artificial fog. Min-jae kept Nia close as they moved through the crowd, his hand firm on her lower back. He led her upstairs to a VIP section where the music was muffled and the lighting was low. Several men in expensive suits stood as Min-jae approached, their expressions carefully neutral. Wait here, Min-jae said, settling Nia on a leather couch. 5 minutes. He disappeared into a back room, and Nia found herself alone with a bottle of champagne she hadn't ordered and growing suspicions about exactly who Park Min-jae was. The way people looked at him, the instant deference, the barely concealed fear. This wasn't respect for a businessman. This was something else entirely. A young woman approached, beautiful in the manufactured way of Seoul's nightlife, her eyes calculating as she took in Nia. You're with Parknam? I'm here, yes. You should be careful. Men like him, they're not for women like us. She said it in English, her accent thick but her meaning clear. They take what they want and leave destruction behind. Before Nia could respond, Min-jae emerged from the back room, his expression dark. He took one look at the woman near Nia and said something sharp in Korean that made her flee. Time to go. In the car, tension radiated off him in waves. Nia watched the Seoul streets blur past and made a decision. Who are you really? I told you. I have responsibilities in this city. What kind of responsibilities require armed men and backroom meetings at nightclubs? When he didn't answer, she continued. I'm not stupid, Min-jae. I've seen how people react to you. That's not respect. That's fear. His jaw clenched. They were stopped at a red light, alone in the back of the sedan with the privacy screen up. Min-jae turned to face her fully, and in the neon glow from outside, his face was all sharp angles and shadows. You want the truth? I run certain operations in Seoul. Operations that exist outside the law. I protect my people, I eliminate threats, and I make sure the city's underground stays balanced. You're in the mafia. We don't use that word here, but essentially, yes. He watched her process this, waiting for the fear or disgust or fascination that usually followed such revelations. If you want me to take you back to your hotel and never contact you again, I'll understand. Nia's heart hammered against her ribs. She should be terrified. Should demand he take her back immediately. Should get on the first flight back to Atlanta and forget she ever met Park Min-jae. Instead, she found herself asking, have you ever killed anyone? The directness of the question seemed to surprise him. Yes. Why? Because they threatened what was mine. Because mercy in my world is seen as weakness. Because I was 15 when my father was murdered in an alley in Itaewon, and I learned that night that the world respects only strength. His voice was flat, emotionless, but she saw the flicker of old pain in his eyes. I became what I needed to become to survive, to protect my sister, to build something from the ashes. The light turned green. The car moved forward, but neither of them looked away from each other. Nia knew she should be horrified, should feel nothing but revulsion. But all she felt was a dangerous curiosity and an even more dangerous attraction. Take me back to the hotel, she said finally. Something crumbled in Min-jae's expression, there and gone so quickly, she almost missed it. Of course. They rode in silence, the easy connection from earlier replaced by tension thick enough to choke on. When they pulled up to the Conrad, Nia reached for the door handle, then stopped. I need time to think about this. About what you told me. I understand. But I'm not saying no. Not yet. She met his eyes, saw the surprise there. I just need to figure out if I'm brave enough or stupid enough to see where this goes. She left him sitting in the car, walking into the hotel without looking back. But in the elevator, her hands shook as she pressed the button for her floor. She had just learned that the most interesting man she had met in years was a criminal. A killer. someone who lived in a world of violence and shadows. And God help her, she wanted to see him again. Min-jae sat in the car long after Nia disappeared into the hotel, processing what had just happened. He had done the right thing, telling her the truth, had given her the chance to walk away before she got pulled deeper into his world. But he hadn't expected the cold panic that gripped him when she asked to leave, hadn't been prepared for the desperate hope when she said she hadn't decided yet. Back to headquarters? Sang-ho asked from the driver's seat. No. Home. Min-jae needed to think, to plan. He had spent 15 years carefully controlling every aspect of his life, never allowing emotions to cloud his judgment. Women came and went, carefully selected from circles that understood the game, that wanted his power or money or protection. None of them had ever made him feel this exposed, this vulnerable. Nia Rose was supposed to be a pleasant distraction, a brief connection with someone from a different world. Instead, she was becoming something he couldn't afford, something that could be used against him. He should let her go, should stay away and let her finish her documentary and return to Atlanta without another thought of him. It was the smart play, the safe play. Min-jae had never been very good at playing it safe. The next morning, Nia woke to a knock on her hotel room door. A delivery person stood there with an enormous bouquet of purple orchids and a small box wrapped in silver paper. The card read simply, "I understand if you choose to walk away, but I hope you don't. Dinner tonight if you're brave enough. Min-jae." Inside the box was a phone, expensive and clearly new. When she turned it on, there was only one contact saved. Park Min-jae, and a text message already waiting. "This phone is secure. If you need anything while you're in Seoul, anything at all, use this number. I meant what I said about protecting what's mine. You might not be ready to be mine yet, but I'm a patient man when it matters." Nia sat on the bed, holding the phone and staring at the flowers. She should throw them both away, should block his number and forget this dangerous attraction. Instead, she found herself typing a response. "What time should I be ready?" His reply came instantly. 7. "We're something comfortable. We're leaving the city." She spent the day conducting interviews in Hongdae, filming street artists and underground musicians, but her mind kept drifting to the evening ahead. What was she doing? Getting involved with a self-proclaimed criminal was beyond stupid. It was professional suicide. If anyone back home found out, her credibility would be destroyed. But when 7 o'clock came and she heard the knock on her door, she opened it without hesitation. Min-jae stood there in dark jeans and a leather jacket, looking less like a crime boss and more like a dangerous fantasy. "Ready for an adventure? Where are we going?" "You'll see." They drove out of Seoul, heading into the mountains as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Min-jae had dismissed his usual driver, piloting the sleek car himself with easy confidence. Music played softly from the speakers, something instrumental and soothing. "I've been thinking about what you told me," Nia said, breaking the comfortable silence. "About your father. About how you became who you are. Having second thoughts?" "Constantly. But I'm still here." She watched his profile, the strong lines of his face softened by the fading light. "I need you to understand something. I don't romanticize crime. I don't think being a gangster is sexy or exciting. What you do, the people you hurt, that matters. I know. But I also know that the world isn't black and white. That sometimes good people end up in impossible situations. That survival can require difficult choices." She took a breath. "So I'm not judging you. Not yet. But I'm also not going to pretend that who you are doesn't matter." Min-jae's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Fair enough. What do you want to know?" "Everything. And nothing." "I don't know." Nia laughed, the sound slightly bitter. "I came to Seoul to make a documentary about subcultures. Turns out I'm living in one instead." They drove higher into the mountains, finally turning onto a narrow road that led to a traditional hanok house perched on a hillside. The view was spectacular, Seoul spread out below them like a carpet of stars. Min-jae parked and led her inside, where a meal had been laid out on a low table. "I bought this place 5 years ago," he said as they removed their shoes at the entrance. "Whenever things get too complicated, too violent, I come here to remember that there's more to life than what I do down there." "Do you come here often?" "Not as often as I should." He poured tea into delicate cups. "You're the first person I've ever brought here." The intimacy of that admission settled between them. They ate slowly, talking about everything except his criminal empire. He asked about her documentaries, seemed genuinely interested in her creative process. She asked about his sister, learned that Hannah knew nothing about his real business, thought he was merely a successful real estate developer. She's the only innocent thing left in my life, Min Jae said quietly. I'd do anything to keep her that way. Even lie to her. Especially lie to her. His eyes met Nia's. There are different kinds of love. The kind that protects by sharing everything, and the kind that protects by building walls. I've always been better at walls. Maybe that's what needs to change. After dinner, they moved to the veranda, sitting on cushions as the night deepened around them. Seoul glowed in the distance, but up here the air was clean and cool. Min Jae had draped his jacket over Nia's shoulders when she shivered, and now they sat close enough that their arms brushed. Can I ask you something personal? Nia said. You've earned the right. That first night at the gallery. Why me? You could have any woman in Seoul. Why risk everything for someone you just met? Min Jae was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was raw with honesty. Because when I saw you, I saw someone who exists in the world the way I've always wanted to but never could. Freely. Honestly. Without constantly calculating angles and threats. He turned to face her fully. You looked at me like I was just a man. Not a monster, not a commodity, not a threat. Just a man. Do you know how rare that is for me? Min Jae. His name came out as barely a whisper. I know this is dangerous for you. I know I should stay away, let you finish your work and go home and forget you ever met me. But I'm a selfish man, Nia, and I want more time with you. However much you're willing to give me. She should leave. Should run back to Seoul and catch the first flight home. Instead, she leaned closer, drawn by something she couldn't name and didn't want to fight. This is crazy. Completely. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. But I haven't felt this alive in 15 years. We barely know each other. Then let's change that. The kiss happened like gravity, inevitable and irresistible. Min Jae's lips met hers with a tenderness that contradicted everything she knew about him. Soft and questioning and patient. Nia made a sound low in her throat and pressed closer, her hands fisting in his shirt. The world narrowed to sensation, his hands tangling in her hair, her fingers tracing the strong line of his jaw, the taste of tea on his tongue, the way he breathed her name like a prayer between kisses. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Min Jae rested his forehead against hers. Tell me to stop. Tell me this is a mistake. Tell me you're leaving Seoul tomorrow, and I'll never see you again. I can't. Nia's voice shook. Because I don't want to. This won't be easy. My world, the people in it, they won't understand. They won't accept you. When has my life ever been easy? She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I'm a black woman making documentaries in spaces that don't want me. I've spent my entire life proving I belong. If you think your criminal empire scares me more than that, you're wrong. He kissed her again, harder this time, with an edge of possession that should have frightened her, but instead sent heat pooling in her stomach. When his hand slid under his jacket to grip her waist, pulling her flush against him, Nia forgot every reason this was a terrible idea. They spent the night at the Hanok, though nothing more than kissing happened. Min Jae seemed determined to prove he could be patient, that this wasn't just physical attraction. They talked until dawn, sharing stories and secrets, building a foundation of honesty that felt both fragile and unbreakable. But as the sun rose over Seoul, reality crept back in. Min Jae's phone buzzed insistently, messages from Sang-ho piling up. Something was happening, something that required his immediate attention. I have to go back, he said reluctantly. Come with me. To what? To whatever happens next. Stay in Seoul. Extend your documentary timeline. Give us a chance to figure out what this is. Nia knew she should say no. Knew that staying meant getting pulled deeper into his dangerous world. But when she looked at Min Jae, at the hope and vulnerability in his eyes, she found herself saying, Okay, but I have conditions. Name them. I won't live in your shadow. I'm not some mistress you keep hidden away. If we do this, we're equals, or we're nothing. Agreed. And if things get too dangerous, if your world starts threatening mine, I walk away. No arguments. No trying to protect me by making my decisions for me. Min Jae's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Agreed. Anything else? Don't lie to me. Ever. Even if you think the truth will hurt me. I'd rather have honesty than comfortable deception. I can do that. He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Thank you for not running. Don't make me regret it. They drove back to Seoul as the city woke around them, neither knowing that their decision to stay together had just set events in motion that would test every promise they had made. Because in Min Jae's world, weakness was hunted, and love was the greatest weakness of all. The decision had been made. Nia was staying. But neither of them knew that eyes had been watching the Hanok, that photographs had been taken, that their private moment had already become ammunition in a war Min Jae didn't yet know was coming. 3 days passed in a blur of stolen moments. Min Jae took her to hidden restaurants and rooftop bars where Seoul spread beneath them like a living thing. They walked along the Han River at midnight, his hand warm in hers, talking about everything and nothing. He introduced her to his sister at Hannah's studio, watching with barely concealed emotion as the two women bonded over art and ambition. Nia found herself falling harder than she'd ever fallen before. Min Jae was nothing like she expected. Yes, he was dangerous. Yes, his world was dark, but with her he was gentle and attentive and surprisingly vulnerable. He listened when she talked about her work, asked intelligent questions, remembered small details she mentioned in passing. But the storm was gathering. Min Jae felt it in the way his lieutenants avoided his eyes during meetings, in the whispers that died when he entered rooms, in Sang-ho's increasingly worried expressions. It came to a head on a Friday afternoon. Min Jae sat in his office reviewing contracts when Sang-ho entered without knocking, his face grim. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Sang-ho placed a manila folder on the desk. Min Jae opened it and felt his blood turn to ice. Photographs. Dozens of them. Nia leaving her hotel. Nia at a cafe reviewing footage. Nia and Min Jae at the Hanok, kissing on the veranda. Nia alone, unaware she was being watched. Who took these? Kim Jae-sung's people. He's been gathering evidence since you were first seen with her at the gallery. Sang-ho's voice was tight. The elders called a meeting. They want you there tonight. Min Jae's hands crushed the photographs. Kim Jae-sung was a rival boss, a traditionalist who had opposed Min Jae's modernization of their operations for years. This was exactly the opening he'd been waiting for. They're going to use her against you, Sang-ho continued. They'll say you're compromised, distracted, that you're bringing shame to the organization by being with an outsider. She's not just an outsider to them. Min Jae's voice was deadly quiet. Say what they really think. They don't think a black woman belongs in your world. They'll use every prejudice, every outdated belief to turn the organization against you. Sang-ho met his boss's eyes. You need to end this. Send her home. Prove she means nothing. It's the only way to shut them down. No. Boss, if you don't, they'll move against her directly. Jae-sung isn't subtle. He'll hurt her to hurt you. Min Jae stood, moving to the window where Seoul sprawled below. Somewhere down there, Nia was editing footage, completely unaware that she'd become a target. The smart move was obvious. End it. Send her away. Protect his position and protect her by making her irrelevant. But he'd spent 15 years making smart moves, safe moves, building walls, and keeping everyone at a distance. For once in his life, he'd found something real. Someone who saw him, not his reputation. Someone who made him want to be better than the monster he'd become. Double her security, Min Jae said finally. I want people on her around the clock. She doesn't go anywhere without protection. You're choosing her over the organization? I'm choosing to handle this my way. Min Jae turned from the window, his expression cold and resolved. Set up the meeting with the elders. Tonight. And make sure Kim Jae-sung knows I'm coming for him if he so much as looks at her wrong. That evening, Min Jae met Nia at a small restaurant in Itaewon. She knew immediately something was wrong. What happened? He could lie, could tell her everything was fine. But he'd promised honesty. Min Jae pulled out one of the surveillance photos and slid it across the table. Nia's face went pale as she looked at the image of herself leaving her hotel, clearly unaware she was being photographed. How long has this been going on? Since the gallery. My enemies know about us. They're going to use you to try to force me out. Then we should stop seeing each other. The words came out steady, But Min-jae saw her hands tremble. I won't be the reason you lose everything. You don't understand. He reached across the table, taking her hand. You're not the reason I'd lose everything. You're the reason I realized I never had anything worth keeping in the first place. Min-jae, be serious. I am serious. His grip tightened. I've spent 15 years building an empire on fear and control. I've made decisions that kept me alive but left me empty. Then you walked into that gallery and reminded me what it felt like to be human. He met her eyes. I'm not giving that up. I'm not giving you up. What if they hurt me to get to you? They won't get the chance. I've assigned protection. You'll have people watching you at all times. Nia pulled her hand away, standing abruptly. No, absolutely not. I am not living my life with bodyguards following me around. That wasn't part of our deal. The deal changed when they started tracking you. Then I'm leaving. I'll go back to Atlanta, finish the documentary remotely. She grabbed her bag. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Your world swallowing mine. Min-jae stood, blocking her path. Please, don't run. Not yet. Give me one good reason why I should stay and let myself be used as a weapon against you. Because I'm falling in love with you. The words came out raw, unguarded. Because in 15 years of darkness, you're the first light I've seen. Because I know I'm being selfish, but I'm asking you to be brave enough for both of us. Nia's eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. I know. He cupped her face gently. Nothing about this is fair. But it's real. What we have is real. And I'm willing to fight for it if you are. She closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. Every logical part of her brain screamed to leave, to get on a plane and forget she'd ever met Park Min-jae. But her heart, that traitorous organ, was already too invested. Okay, she whispered. But if this gets worse, if people actually get hurt because of me, I'm gone. I mean it. I'll keep you safe. I promise. That night, Min-jae walked into a private room at an exclusive restaurant where Seoul's criminal elite gathered. 8 men sat around a table, and Kim Jae-sung wore a satisfied smile that Min-jae wanted to wipe off with his fists. Thank you for joining us, the eldest said. We have concerns about your recent behavior. My personal life is not your concern. It is when it affects the organization. Jae-sung leaned forward. You've been seen publicly with an American woman. This shows poor judgment. It makes us look weak, makes you look weak. Careful, Min-jae said softly. Choose your next words very carefully. We're simply stating facts. Our world has standards, traditions. You can't just bring in anyone and expect us to accept it. What you mean is you can't accept that she's black. The room went silent. Min-jae had said it, had forced them to confront the racism they were dancing around with polite language. That's not what we said, another elder protested. But it's what you meant. Min-jae stood, his presence dominating the room. Let me make something very clear. Nia Rose is off limits. Anyone who threatens her, anyone who even looks at her wrong, answers to me personally. And you all know what that means. You would choose her over us? Jae-sung's voice dripped with disdain. I would choose not being a bigoted coward over anything. Min-jae placed his hands on the table, leaning forward. I've built this organization into something powerful. I've made all of you wealthy beyond imagination. If you think you can replace me, try. But remember that I didn't get here by playing nice. He straightened, buttoning his jacket. The surveillance on her stops immediately. The threats stop. You will treat her with respect, or you will deal with me. Meeting adjourned. Min-jae walked out, leaving shocked silence in his wake. Outside, Sang-ho waited by the car. That went well, his lieutenant said dryly. It went exactly as expected. Now we see who's brave enough to move against me. They drove to Nia's hotel, where Min-jae had insisted she stay until things settled. He found her on the balcony, looking out over the city. How did it go? She asked without turning. I made my position clear. They'll either accept it or try to remove me. And if they try to remove you, then I'll remove them first. He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. I meant what I said earlier. I'm not giving you up. Nia leaned back against him. I'm scared. Me too. The great Park Min-jae scared. Terrified. I've never had anything to lose before. He pressed his lips to her temple. Stay with me tonight. Not here, at my place. Let me keep you close. She turned in his arms. Okay. His penthouse was everything she expected, sleek and modern with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul. But there were also small touches of humanity. Books on shelves, photographs of his sister, a worn guitar in the corner. "You play?" Nia asked, gesturing to the instrument. "Used to. Before everything changed." Min-jae poured them both wine. "My father taught me. After he died, I couldn't touch it for years. Play something for me. Now." Now. He picked up the guitar, his fingers finding the strings like old friends. The melody was melancholic, beautiful, something traditional Korean, but with his own interpretation woven through. Nia watched his face soften, the crime boss disappearing to reveal the man underneath. When he finished, she crossed the room and kissed him. Not with the desperate passion of before, but with something deeper. Understanding. Acceptance. Love beginning to take root. "Thank you," she whispered against his lips. "For what?" "For being real with me. For not hiding who you are, even the broken parts." They made love that night, slow and tender, building connection with every touch. Min-jae worshipped her body like it was sacred, showing her without words how much she meant to him. And Nia gave herself completely, trusting him with a vulnerability she'd never shown anyone. Afterward, tangled together in his bed as Seoul glittered outside, Min-jae made a silent vow. Whatever came next, whatever battles he had to fight, he would protect what they'd found together, even if it cost him everything. Because Nia Rose had given him something more valuable than power or fear or respect. She'd given him hope. The attack came 3 days later. Nia was filming in Hongdae, capturing footage of street performers for her documentary. Min-jae's security team stayed back, giving her space while maintaining a protective perimeter. She had just finished interviewing a young graffiti artist when her phone buzzed. The secure one Min-jae had given her. "Get in the car. Now." His voice was tight, controlled, but she heard the fear underneath. "What's happening?" Jae-sung made his move. "He's coming for you. My team will get you somewhere safe." Before she could respond, 2 black SUVs screeched to a stop beside her. Sang-ho jumped out, his face grim. "Miss Rose, we need to leave immediately." Nia barely had time to grab her equipment before she was ushered into the vehicle. They pulled into traffic aggressively, the second SUV following close behind. "Where's Min-jae?" "Handling the situation." Sang-ho's eyes stayed on the mirrors. "He'll meet us at the safe house." "What situation?" "What's Jae-sung doing?" "He's forcing a confrontation. Called an emergency council meeting, claiming the boss is unfit to lead." Sang-ho's jaw clenched. "It's a power play. If Min-jae doesn't show strength, he loses everything." Nia's stomach dropped. This was her fault. Her presence had created a weakness Jae-sung was exploiting. She should never have stayed, should never have let herself fall for someone whose world operated on violence and power. They arrived at a nondescript building in Gangnam. Sang-ho led her to a top-floor apartment, luxurious but clearly designed for security. Reinforced doors, cameras everywhere, no exposed windows. "Stay here. Don't leave for any reason." Sang-ho positioned 2 guards outside. "The boss will come as soon as he can." Then she was alone with her thoughts and growing dread. Across the city, Min-jae stood in an underground parking garage that served as neutral ground for the organization's leadership. 15 men formed a circle, their faces hard and expectant. Kim Jae-sung stood opposite him, confident and smug. "You've become weak," Jae-sung announced to the gathered men. "Distracted by a woman who has no place in our world. You've embarrassed us, made us look soft to our rivals." "I've made this organization more profitable than it's ever been," Min-jae replied calmly. "Tripled our revenue, expanded our territory, eliminated threats you couldn't handle. My personal life doesn't change that. Your personal life shows poor judgment. It makes you vulnerable." Jae-sung circled slowly. "She's a liability. An outsider who could expose us, who weakens your position just by existing. Then challenge me directly instead of hiding behind council meetings." Min-jae's voice dropped to a dangerous register. "You want my position? Take it. Right here, right now." The challenge hung in the air. In their world, leadership disputes could be settled through direct combat. It was old-fashioned, brutal, but effective. Jae-sung had been a fighter once, but that was 20 years ago. Min-jae was in his prime, and everyone knew it. Jae-sung's confidence flickered. "This isn't about physical strength." "No. It's about you being too much of a coward to face me directly, so you threaten a woman who has nothing to do with our business. Min-jae stepped closer. You had her followed, photographed, turned into a target. That crosses a line. I simply showed the council what they needed to see. That you're compromised. I'm going to give you one chance. Min-jae's eyes were dead, cold. Call off your people. Apologize to this council for wasting their time. Walk away, and I'll let you keep your territory and your life. And if I refuse, then I'll show everyone here exactly why I'm in charge. Jae-sung looked around at the other men, searching for support, but they remained neutral, watching, waiting to see who would emerge victorious. In their world, might made right. You think you're untouchable because you're young and strong? Jae-sung's desperation showed now. I have allies. People who agree with me that you're making the organization weak. Then they can step forward now. Min-jae's gaze swept the circle. Anyone who stands with Jae-sung, speak up. We'll settle this today. Silence. No one moved. Whatever support Jae-sung thought, he had evaporated under Min-jae's cold stare. Last chance, Min-jae said quietly. Jae-sung's hand moved toward his jacket, reaching for a weapon. He never got there. Min-jae moved like lightning, closing the distance and striking with devastating precision. 3 blows, perfectly placed. Jae-sung crumpled to the concrete, gasping. Min-jae crouched beside him. I could kill you right now. Everyone here would support it. You drew a weapon in a challenge, broke the rules. He leaned closer. But I'm going to let you live. Because I want you to remember this moment every time you think about challenging me again. He stood, addressing the council. Anyone else have concerns about my leadership? Heads shook. The message was clear. Min-jae had proven himself again, had shown that compassion didn't equal weakness. Good. Then we're done here. Min-jae stepped over Jae-sung's prone form. Someone get him medical attention. And spread the word. The woman is off limits. Anyone who forgets that answers to me. Min-jae arrived at the safe house an hour later, his knuckles bruised, his shirt torn at the collar. Nia rushed to him immediately. Are you hurt? I'm fine. He pulled her close, breathing in her scent, grounding himself in her presence. It's over. Jae-sung won't be a problem anymore. What did you do? What I had to do. He pulled back to look at her. But I need you to understand something. This won't be the last time. There will always be people who see you as my weakness, who try to use you against me. Then maybe they're right. Maybe I am your weakness. No. His hands cupped her face. You're my strength. You make me remember why I'm fighting, what I'm building toward. A world where I can just be a man with the woman he loves, not a monster maintaining control through fear. You love me. The words came out whispered. Completely. Terrifyingly. More than I thought I was capable of. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. I know it's complicated. I know my world is dark and dangerous. But I love you, Nia Rose. And I'm asking you to stay, to build something real with me despite everything. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She'd been so scared, so certain that this couldn't work, that loving him would only lead to pain. But looking into his eyes, seeing the raw vulnerability there, she knew the truth. She loved him too. Had probably loved him since that first night at the gallery when he made her laugh about negative space and paint supplies. I love you too, she said. Even though you're impossible and dangerous and completely wrong for me. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Come home with me. Not to hide, not to be protected, but because that's where you belong. With me. Okay, but I have conditions. More conditions? His lips curved into a smile. I finished my documentary. I keep working, keep being me. I won't lose myself in your world. Agreed. And you start thinking about getting out. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. Because I can't spend the rest of my life waiting for someone to hurt you or use me against you. Min-jae was quiet for a long moment. Getting out wasn't simple in his world. People didn't retire from criminal organizations cleanly. But looking at Nia, at the future she was offering, he found himself willing to try. I'll find a way, he promised. It might take time, but I'll find a way to walk away clean. That's all I'm asking. Time and effort and honesty. They left the safe house together, driving through Seoul as night fell. The city glittered around them, full of possibilities and dangers in equal measure. But for the first time in 15 years, Min-jae felt like he was driving towards something instead of just running from his past. 2 weeks later, Nia sat in Min-jae's penthouse, reviewing footage for her documentary. She'd decided to pivot the project, to explore not just Seoul's underground art scene but the city's hidden worlds, the spaces where different cultures collided and created something new. It was riskier, more personal, but infinitely more interesting. Min-jae came up behind her, draping his arms around her shoulders. "How's it going?" "Good. I think I finally found the angle I've been looking for." She tilted her head back to look at him. "Your sister agreed to let me feature her work more prominently. She's excited about it. Talks about you constantly." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "She likes you. Thinks you're good for me. Smart woman. She has her moments." He moved around the couch to sit beside her. "I have something for you." He pulled out a small envelope and handed it to her. Inside was a key and a handwritten note on expensive stationery. "What's this?" "The Hannock. I'm putting it in your name." Nia looked up sharply. "Min-jae, I can't accept this." "You can and you will. That place is our sanctuary, where we can be just us without the weight of everything else. I want you to have it, to know you always have somewhere safe, somewhere that's completely yours." "This is too much. It's not nearly enough." He took her hands. "I'm also setting up a trust. If anything happens to me, you'll be taken care of. Protected." "Stop. Don't talk like that." "I have to. My world is unpredictable, and I need to know you'll be okay." He squeezed her hands. "I'm working on an exit strategy. It's going to take time, maybe a year or two, but I'm building legitimate businesses, creating separation between me and the organization's operations. Eventually, I'll be able to step away." "You really mean it?" "I really mean it. Because I want a future with you. Not stolen moments and constant danger, but a real life. Maybe even a family someday, if you want that." Nia's heart swelled. She'd come to Seoul for a documentary and found something infinitely more valuable. Love that challenged her, that made her brave, that promised a future she'd never dared imagine. "I want that," she said. "All of it." They sealed the promise with a kiss, soft and sweet and full of hope. Outside, Seoul continued its relentless pace, neon lights painting the night in electric colors. But inside Min-jae's penthouse, two people from impossibly different worlds had found common ground. It wouldn't be easy. There would be more challenges, more people who tried to use their love as a weapon. But they would face it together, building something real from the shadows and light of their intertwined lives. Park Min-jae, Seoul's most feared mafia boss, had finally found something worth more than power. And Nia Rose, the documentary filmmaker from Atlanta who'd come to capture Korea's underground, had found a love worth fighting for. 3 months later, Nia stood in a gallery in Itaewon, the same one where she'd first met Min-jae. Her documentary was premiering tonight, a raw and honest exploration of Seoul's hidden worlds. Critics and artists filled the space, champagne flowing, conversations buzzing. Min-jae stood slightly apart, watching her shine. She moved through the crowd with confidence, answering questions about her work, her vision, her unexpected love for this city. She'd extended her stay indefinitely, set up a small production company, was already planning her next project. Hannah appeared beside her brother. "You're staring." "I'm admiring. It's disgustingly romantic." But Hannah was smiling. "She's good for you. You seem almost human these days. Don't spread that around. Bad for my reputation." They laughed together, and Min-jae felt a contentment he'd never known. His exit strategy was working. He'd identified a successor, was gradually transitioning power, building a legitimate empire that didn't require violence to maintain. In 6 months, maybe a year, he'd be free. Nia caught his eye across the room and smiled, that radiant expression that still made his breath catch. She excused herself from a conversation and made her way to him. "Having fun?" she asked. "Watching you have fun is enough for me." Smooth talker. She took his hand. "Come on. There's someone I want you to meet." She led him to a distinguished older black man in an expensive suit. "Min-jae, this is my father, Richard Rose." "Dad, this is Park Min-jae." Min-jae felt his heart stop. Her father. She'd told her father about him, had brought him here to meet the reformed criminal she'd fallen in love with. Richard extended his hand, his grip firm, his eyes assessing. "My daughter tells me you're quite the businessman." I'm working on becoming the kind of man worthy of her, Min-jae replied honestly. Richard studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. She also tells me you're getting out of your previous line of work. Yes, sir. It's taking time, but I'm committed to it. Good. Because if you hurt my daughter, legitimate businessman or not, I will make your life very difficult. But Richard was smiling slightly. That said, I've never seen her this happy. So thank you for that. They talked for a few more minutes before Richard excused himself to view more of the exhibition. Nia squeezed Min-jae's hand. That went well. Your father is terrifying. You faced down rival gang bosses, and you're scared of my dad. Absolutely. He's much more dangerous to me than they ever were. Min-jae pulled her close. He could take you away. No one's taking me anywhere. I'm exactly where I want to be. As the night wore on and the exhibition wound down, Min-jae and Nia stood on the gallery's balcony, looking out over Seoul. The city stretched before them, glittering and alive, full of stories yet to be told. Thank you, Nia said quietly. For what? For being brave enough to let me in. For changing your life for us. For loving me despite how complicated it makes everything. Thank you for seeing past the monster to the man underneath. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. For giving me a reason to become better. They stood there in comfortable silence, two people who'd found each other against impossible odds, who'd chosen love over fear, honesty over safety, hope over the darkness that had once defined them both. Seoul's deadly mafia boss had fallen for a fearless black woman from Atlanta. And in falling, he'd found redemption, purpose, and a future worth building. The end. Thanks for watching, besties. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Afro K-dramas.